one, and let's talk about Fantastic Four First Steps. Now, you already know when it came down to Fantastic Four, I was a little bit um cautious about the film because I didn't know. I was like, because I've been so disappointed. Like the ones that came out with Jessica Alba and Ian Griffith and Michael Chiklis and all of them, I was like, okay, these movies are okay. Then they came out with the one that we had with Michael Bakari Jordan. First half of the movie was good. Second half, I don't know what the hell happened. It just went off the rails. So then I went into this movie. I was like, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if it was whether or not it was good. I've heard people say, oh, it's good, it's good, it's good. Like, it's a really good movie. Finally, they got it right. And I was a little skeptical because I be feeling like a lot of you critics and pundits and stuff be coming out. Y'all just be bought and paid for the reservation or the preservation about it. Because that people feel like a lot of y'all just be saying that because y'all just want to get these invites and things to these screenings. So y'all don't want to rock the boat over at the MCU and Disney. So y'all going to sit up in there and say the movies was good. So I went in on Friday, saw it in Dolby. I want to see it in IMAX, but it's always so hard for me to get a ticket in IMAX, especially if I'm in like Lincoln or whatever, because the seats are all the good seats is always taken, and it irritates me. And I was not, I was gonna say I wasn't trying to get up early, although I did tell y'all when I went to see it on Friday, I went to a 10 a.m. screening of the movie, which I was exhausted by the end of the night because I had to do that, and then I went to the gym, and then after that I went to the Chris Stapleton concert. So y'all already know I was spent by the end of the night. But I was like, I'm a trooper. I'm gonna still try to hold on to what's left of my youth and run my ass over there to the city, 34th Street to be exact, to go see Fantastic Four. And when I went to go see it, I will have to say, MCU, y'all finally got it right. Y'all finally got a Fantastic Four movie right that I agree with. And then I know some people was mad about how the movie ended, especially with how is Sue Storm able to do what she did to Galactus. I'm like, do y'all not realize like out of the Fantastic Four, Sue Storm was the most powerful um superhero within that whole dynamic. So read a comic is what I'll say. But so Pedro Pascal, even though I know a lot of people get mad because he don't look like Mr. Fantastic, he don't look because the mustache stuff. Look, he already said he's not shaving. He don't like the way he looks without facial hair. So we can suspend our disbelief and let him rock. However, as him playing Reed Richards, I thought he did a phenomenal job as Reed Richards. I love Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm. I thought she did a phenomenal job in that sense. And I'm definitely wanting to see more of her. Um, oh my God, what's his name? The guy that played Ben Grimm. I thought that he was a phenomenal thing. Especially I kept like really paying attention to the effects and stuff, like how his face moves, and even at one point how they had the facial hair coming. I was just like the effects on Ben Grimm, aka the Thing. I thought looked excellent. Although I will say this, there was some effects in the movie that I'm like, y'all could have worked on that a little bit because you could definitely tell it was green screen. Like there's a sequence when Shalabal comes in and she goes, I herald and all the other stuff that she says before she comes in, and then you see the car, the retro car that everybody else comes in, how it skirts and comes into the camera frame. I was like, that was a little rough. So there were little things in there that I was nitpicking. Like some of the effects looked a little rough. Like y'all could have smoothed that out a little bit. But then again, we already know how some of y'all studios work when it comes to y'all have a deadline. Y'all like to set deadlines for y'all movies, and then it does take time to get those effects to work in the way that they need to work. So hopefully by the time I guess the movie comes on Disney Plus, whatever the case is, that they'll smooth out some of those effects if they're willing to put that kind of money in. But I thought everybody did good. And then the guy, what's his name? I always refer to him as Eddie Munson because of Stranger Things. I thought he was a good Johnny Storm. Although I will say this, in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking about Chris Evans because Chris Evans, well, besides the fact that he's hot, but Chris Evans, I just think is like his Johnny Storm is memorable. But I love this actor. I don't know why I cannot remember his name, but I'm gonna just call him Eddie Munson because Stranger Things. So the actor that played him, I just thought that he did a phenomenal job. Like everybody, I thought the chemistry was very much important, and I remember them saying that it was more or less about the chemistry. So I thought the chemistry between the four was great. Um, Julia Garner, I thought was great as Shalabal. The actor that played Galactus, I don't know his name, but I do remember he was in a movie called The Witch. He played the father. His voice is so pulsating. Like literally felt like it was piercing through me the way he was talking. So I thought that Galactus was good. I love the overall effect of like how he looks. Like I know they've been trying to hide him in the commercials, which I'm actually glad that they did. Seeing him on a big screen, he was definitely intimidating. But the problem that I have is that there wasn't enough of him. And I think that's always a problem with me with the MCU. Y'all don't be really going in and letting have on your villains. I feel like they scale back a little too much on the villains. Y'all, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the dynamic of like our heroes and things, but you need to give the villains equal amount of time. I just feel like no other villain in the MCU so far has been as top notch as Thanos. And I feel like Thanos played a bigger role because of the two movies, and he was sprinkled throughout all the other MCU movies before we got to um Infinity War and Endgame and that sort of thing. But if you're gonna give us villains, like I need equal time with the villains just as much, and I wanted more Galactus. So that was my only issue. Also, I wanted more dynamic between Ben Grimm and Johnny Storm. I thought their silly dynamic together was very much like buddy comedy type stuff, and I kind of like the banter between them. So I wanted a lot more than that. I'll also say this: I love the fact that Fantastic Four did not make them and make it an origin movie. So I'm liking this whole idea of like, you know what? It's a set universe. They're already superheroes. They're a couple of years into the situation. Here's what it is. Sit back and then go on for the ride. They did this with this movie. They did it with Superman. There was another movie they did that. What was the other? Oh, I feel like y'all got that from the Batman because the Batman actually started that. I've noticed there was no origin. It literally was Robert Pattinson's Batman was already, I believe, what 3 years into being the Batman, so he was a little still rough around the edges. So I'm noticing that since that movie, and they saw how successful it was, we don't need any more origin stories. We had enough. We already know Superman's origin story. We already know Batman's origin story. We already know Fantastic Four's origin story. So we didn't need to see them go out in space and the whole superpower thing. They did like a little collage in the beginning. And I also love the retrofuturism of the film. Love the whole idea that where it was like a retrofuturistic New York. So it's like a cross between 2001 A Space Odyssey meets the Jetsons. So I kind of like that whole visual dynamic of it. So yeah, overall, I will say that it is a good movie. It is definitely something that I would encourage all of you to see on a big screen in either Dolby because of the surround sound or IMAX. I want to try to see if I can see it in IMAX before they take it out because I definitely want to see this movie again. And yeah, so the writing was good, the acting was good. Now there are two credits. There's a mid credit and a post credit scene. I'm not going to tell you what they were, but I do know that there was a rumor about one mid credit scene that had to do with Doctor Doom. There was something that was floating around on social media that somebody was like, "Oh, I don't know if that's true. That sounds fake." No, it was real because the exact description of the thing of Sue reading to Franklin and then Doctor Doom shows up. I was like, that sounds ridiculous. And then there was some people that were saying that yeah, that was a rumor. There was somebody that leaked that months before the movie came out. And then I seen the post. I was like, okay, so they wasn't lying. And then there's another. Then there's a post credit scene. So the post credit scene was cute. Mid credit scene was like, okay, it was awesome. I do kind of wonder if that was RDJ or if that was like a stand-in, because at that point, with that way that mid credit scene played, you don't really need RDJ to show up for that. You could just have a stand-in in the costume, and I don't think they need to show the helmet. Him holding the helmet on the side. It's like if we see the green hood, we know that who that is. But then he could have just turned a little bit and then have the mask on, and you kind of got that whole thing. So I don't know. But I heard that both scenes, that the big credit scene was shot by the Russo brothers, which I'm also hearing. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Russo brothers also shot the. Was it the mid credit? No, it was the post credit, because the mid credit scene. I was thinking Thunderbolts. Mid credit scene was when um oh my god, the guy from another actor from Stranger Things. He was in the cereal aisle and that whole situation. I think the other scene that was at the post credit scene of Thunderbolts when the Fantastic Four ship is coming in and stuff. From what I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was shot by the Russos. But yeah, so I say definitely go see the film. There's a damn fly in here in my face. I hate when it's like, I got to get my electrical fly swatter, which looks like a tennis racket. But anyway, so now that I got my review out of the way, because I wanted to kind of give my overall little review. Let's get into the box office. So, it says Marvel's latest comic book adaptation has lifted off with 118 million from 4,125 North America. Okay, this damn fly, get out of my face. North American, it's like a little one too. Those are the worst. But anyway, let's concentrate. From 4,125 North American theaters over the weekend, those ticket sales were slightly ahead of expectations of 100 million to 110 million. Fantastic Four, a retro-futuristic adventure starring Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby. Okay, it's Eben Moss-Backrack. I don't know why I cannot remember that man's name. And Joseph Quinn. That was the two. So Joseph Quinn, was Johnny Storm. Eben Moss-Backrack, who we all know from The Bear, which I love that show, is he plays the Thing. And I'm like, oh, I also forgot to bring up, I liked his dynamic between him and Natasha Lyonne. I kind of wanted more of that. So maybe we'll get that in the sequel. That she kind of sees him for him, which has always kind of been the angle they always play up in all the other movies. So, because they did that with Michael Chiklis' character. I don't even remember the one, like I told y'all before, with Michael B. Jordan. So I don't even count that mess. But anyway, so they said it collected another 100 million at the international box office with a global total of 218 million. Now directed by Matt Shakman, Fantastic Four follows the foursome, Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Woman, The Thing, and Human Torch as they protect their worlds from a planet-devouring cosmic being. Yes, I don't want to give y'all, and of course the planet-devouring cosmic being is Galactus, where he has this ship that pretty much just eats planets. And I don't want to tell y'all the key and the connection and who's involved and all this stuff. I want y'all to still see the movie. So I'm withholding too many spoilers. But, and also they showed the trailer to Avatar, Fire and Ash. They actually, and that was the weird way that they did that. They did, if you ever go to AMC, they do the usual like 30-minute commercials. Then they bring on the stupid little dance thing where it looks like it's, Save the Last Dance or like some dance contest crap. And then they're telling y'all to shut up and turn off your phone devices. Then we go to Nicole Kidman with all that shit in her face, telling y'all to, talk about the theater experience. And then usually we get into the movie. But no, then they showed Avatar, Fire and Ash, and then they just hard cuts into showing Fantastic Four. So I thought it was interesting, but I actually like the Avatar. I actually like the Avatar movie. Trailer. I thought it looked pretty good. So I knew they were going to drop it today. So if you haven't seen the Avatar trailer, you can see it. It's officially been dropped on YouTube a couple of hours ago. But they wanted everybody to go to the movies and see the trailer in theaters unless some moron actually held up a phone and recorded it and put it on Twitter. I don't know. I wasn't looking for it. And I wasn't on social media because I was pretty busy this whole weekend. So I don't know what the hell has been happening the past couple of days, except for the topics that we have coming up on the show. So, nevertheless, I just thought, the Avatar Fire and Ash trailer, it actually looked pretty good. But I think we have two more after this Fire and Ash one. Like there's one coming out at the end of this year, and then we have, I think, one coming out in 2028 and another one in 2030. I'm like, Jesus. I just hope that James Cameron can hold on long enough to get all these damn movies out because he's a man of a certain age. Now let's get back into the box office. So now they said based on total turnout, Fantastic Four First Steps is shaping up to be a needed win for Marvel Studios. The comic book empire, which has become Hollywood's most reliable hitmaker, has greatly struggled with commercial consistency over the last 5 years. The company has succeeded in post-pandemic times with entries led by familiar faces such as Spider-Man No Way Home, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Black Panther Wakanda Forever, but attempts to put the spotlight on newer characters were major financial missteps. This May's well-received Thunderbolts, for example, ended its theatrical one with 382 million and stands as one of the lowest grossing installments in Marvel's 37 film franchise. After inundating viewers with too many interconnected films and television shows, Disney's Bob Iger, Disney whatever, it's the same shit. Disney CEO Bob Iger has already said there's a mandate for Marvel to do less at a higher caliber. They also, I liked about this film is the fact that it was less connecting tissue. So it wasn't like, remember the overall complaint with people is, I don't want to have to do homework to watch these movies. You do not have to do homework watching these movies. They're not connected to anything. It felt fresh. It felt new. I love the idea that we got the Fantastic Four and they're not connected to any of these other superheroes. But I'm sure what will happen is, because I'm sure they're going to be in Avengers Doomsday, they will be interacting with all these other superheroes, but they're not connected to the other superheroes. Because one of the things I also realized, they show that they could jump, how they can kind of do like that, like in Star Wars, where they not time jump, but you can kind of jump into a different stratosphere and all that other stuff. They introduced that into this movie, so I'm wondering if that'll play into like Doomsday or whatever the case is, where they come into that world. If they can figure out how to make that work, I don't know, because I don't know what's happening with Doomsday. So I'll just wait and see how all that comes out. But I guess they'll have to figure out how they can bring the Fantastic Four into that world, which they, like I said, they tease at the end of Thunderbolts, because we already know like Thunderbolts is going to be connecting with Fantastic Four at some point, because in the new Avengers. Hopefully they'll still be able to make that work, because like I said, the movie didn't do all that well. Now, they said Fantastic Four cost above $200 million to produce and needs to keep up the momentum to avoid the fate of other recent Marvel movies like Captain America Brave New World, which is a story that I'm going to get into next, regarding something Kevin Feige said regarding why Brave New World did not do well at the box office. So they said, yeah, it was 100 million over debut over 4 days. 2023's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which I already told you I hated that movie. I literally, after 30 minutes, I checked out. There was which was 106 million, which collapsed on the strong charts. However, these films were poorly received. First Steps has the benefit of positive word of mouth, including an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes and an encouraging A grade on CinemaScore exit polls. Plus, there's virtually no competition on the horizon in terms of all audience tempos. And that's another thing too. They don't have anything to worry about in regards to movies, because I think the next movie that comes out after this, that is going to be, I believe, in IMAX, is Weapons, the new Zach Cregger movie, starring Julia Garner, who's also in this movie. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing Weapons. I've heard great things about it. I'm actually looking forward to Zach Cregger's Resident Evil reboot whenever he gets around to that. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing this movie when it comes out. I'm actually going to the theater to see that, because I've heard so much great things. But now let's get into the previous Fantastic Four. So it says Hollywood has attempted many times to bring the Fantastic Four, known colloquially as Marvel's first family, to the big screen, but none struck the right chord with critics or audiences. The first efforts from 20th Century Fox, which owned the characters prior to the studio's 2019 merger with Disney, were 2 decades ago, with 2005's Fantastic Four, which brought in $330 million, and its sequel, 2007's Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, with $301 million. Those films, starring Jessica Alba and Chris Evans, were financially successful but critically derided. Meanwhile, a widely panned 2015 reboot, damn, that movie came out 10 years ago, I didn't even realize that, with Miles Teller, Kate Mara, and Michael Bakari Jordan, completely fizzled with 167 million globally in theaters. Now, Fantastic Four was a modest and struggling superhero series. It just caught up with the biggest and best, which is what David A. Gross, who's an analyst of franchise entertainment research, had to say. Now, Fantastic Four: First Steps ranks as the year's 4th biggest domestic debut, following a Minecraft movie at 162 million, Lilo and Stitch, which is our first billion-dollar grossing movie, with 146 million, and Superman with 125 million. Fantastic Four opened 2 weekends after fellow superhero tentpole Superman, which slid to second place with 24.9 million from 3,930 screens, a 57% decline from its prior outing. This fly is about to work my nerve. I feel like, what was that? I think it was like an episode of The View when they was going on about a damn fly. I feel like Whoopi Goldberg right now. And 502.7 million globally. Now, Fantastic Four and Superman are performing extremely well. Superman, even though, according to some pundits on the internet, John Roca and what's his name, Jeff Snyder, they keep talking about how this movie's not doing well, and call anybody who says that, I guess they're calling BS on it. But The numbers don't lie, I guess. But they just said, so yeah, so it says the Warner Brothers DC adaptation has generated 289.5 million domestically and 502.7 million globally. So so for a certain movie that's only doing well domestically, then how were they able to accumulate all this money? I guess people are just hooking the books, according to y'all. Now, Fantastic Four and Superman are performing extremely well. Superheroes are showing some swagger, and it's good news for the industry. Now, third place is Jurassic World Rebirth. I don't know how people are still paying to see that movie. That is one of the worst films that has been released this summer. But if you like it, I love it. And they said with 13 million from 3,550 venues in its fourth frame. The Dinosaur Epic, which rebooted the film with Scarlett Johansson, Mahershala, all of them, grossed 301 million in North America and 718 million globally. And they said, although these are strong ticket sales, it's one of the only three Hollywood releases to surpass 700 million this year. The latest Jurassic has to keep climbing near the heights of the prior sequel trilogy, all of which grossed $1 billion globally. And then we have Apple's F1 with at number 4 with 6.2 million. And we have the Smurfs, which rounded up the top 5 with 5.4 million from 3,504 venues, which is a 50% drop from its disappointing 11 million debut. Well, first of all, everybody knew that Smurfs movie was going to be trash. And coming in at 6th place is I Know What You Did Last Summer, who added 5.1 million from 3,504 locations, tumbling by 60% from its opening weekend. The film has grossed 23.5 million domestically and 45.5 million globally. And then, but the budget for the film is 18 million. And so it won't take so it'll make its money back at the end of the day. And I feel like if we do get a sequel for I Know What You Did Last Summer, what needs to happen is get rid of Jennifer Kayden Robinson. I do not think she did a great job with this movie. She's a comedy girl. She said she's big on horror. I don't know. I was like, okay, where? What was the connection? The fact that you're besties with Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr., like that's not connecting tissue to you being a true horror movie fan. I know a lot of the gays liked it. I wasn't one of them. I thought, I mean, for the nostalgia's sake of the franchise, I like that aspect. But everything else, it was a chop for me. Like, to me, I was even thinking about this even more. Like, I've been thinking about the film even more. I don't like the fact that y'all just underused Jennifer Love Hewitt. Hopefully, we get the sequel, we get more of her with Carla. Bring somebody else in that understands how to write this. Like, maybe bring in Christopher Lambert. Like I said, I would have loved for him to do Scream. Since that whole situation happened with him in Scream, bring in Christopher Landon to do I Know What You Did Last Summer. They won't go too hard on him because he's not a part of the whole Scream thing. We'll get into the whole thing about people still protesting about Scream 7 because I guess they had a panel at Comic-Con this weekend, even though there's only like one thing. Anyway, so if you bring somebody in that understands how to write characters, knows how to come up with really cool kills. He does. Who knows how to build suspense and make this whole I Know What You Did Last Summer thing interesting, because the only reason why we had like this killer in that film was because there was an accident that happened. They tried to cover it up and that sort of thing. It wasn't like there was some guy just going around stalking them. It's not like I Know What You Did Last Summer is no Halloween and it's no Friday the 13th and it's no Scream, even though Kevin Williamson wrote both films. Screaming, I Know What You Did Last Summer. And then on top of that, you got to make your characters interesting. The only interesting characters I will say from that entire movie, Tyreek Withers, he was actually pretty entertaining to watch. And the podcast girl, I wanted more of her. She, at least she wasn't, she was actually, she seemed like she was doing a good job, whatever, giving us entertainment in regards of delivering her lines. Madeline Klein, all of them, is like y'all could have just killed all them broads off, and I would have been perfectly fine with it. So, I say all this to say to wrap this up, because I know I went a little long, but I had to break that down. I had to give my review. I had to do all that stuff to wrap up with the whole Fantastic Four situation. So I want to ask all of you guys, what do you think of this story? Did you happen to check out Fantastic Four over the weekend? What were your overall thoughts? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Did the MCU finally get it right by giving us a proper Fantastic Four movie that was ripped straight out of the comic. So I want to hear that, and also whatever your overall thoughts on the other films that were released over the weekend and last weekend, how well they did on, and the box office numbers and all that good stuff. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of this story in the comments down below.